Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast. Donald Trump should be very busy now putting together the worst cabinet in U.S. history. And instead, he's apoplectic on Twitter talking about a freaking recount. No, not the one that Pat McCrory's doing in North Carolina. The one that's auditing the vote in 3 states that people would like to see. And we know that they would like to see it because they gave their damn money to pay for it. So you mentioned Greg Palast. Mention and you shall receive. Hello, Greg.
Hey, Randy. Long time.
Long time.
Unfortunately, we can't keep meeting like this every time they steal an election.
But that's what you're here for. You're my security blanket when they steal. All right. Now, listen, a lot of people have brought you up to me, and they have said things like, I only brought the show back a couple of months ago. It's only been like four months. So.
Yes.
So in the last 4 months, people have been saying that the election was stolen before it even happened. And I know that that's what you and Rolling Stone, decided that was going on. So let's explain to people why you said that. What is cross-check? What does it mean? Why we need an audit?
Okay. Here's the deal. And in fact, you got to go back to a little bit of history of people, which you know too well and others don't. Back in 2000 when Bush, Catherine Harris and Jeb Bush removed thousands of black men from the voter rolls of Florida.
Right.
That they were criminals, but their only crime was voting while black. But that gave us George W. Bush as president by removing black people from the voter rolls. Well, it worked really well, so they're doing it. So they decided to do it again. This time it was Trump's cronies. So when Trump said the election was rigged, he knew because his cronies were rigging it. Now, exactly how are they doing it? This is the investigation I did for Rolling Stone. It took 2 years. And, because, by the way, Trump's been talking about the elections being rigged for 2 years.
Yeah, he has.
Same line. People don't understand. It's been, even before he declared, he was on a circuit, speaking circuit for a group called Citizens United. And
David Bossie, right, who's now going to be a cabinet member. Oh, my God.
So what's happened is that, okay, so what here's their new game. Before it was calling black men felons, which is easy to do, even though they aren't. This new one is to say an old Ku Klux Klan line, which is that black people are voting many, many times. See, people weren't listening to his phrasing when the second part of his phrase. He said the election's rigged. No one heard the second part because millions of people are voting many, many times. When he says there are millions of illegal votes, those are from his campaign, these are multiple voters. This has not been discussed anywhere, what the basis is. The problem is if it's just Trump speaking through his comb-over, who would care? It's just a Trumpism, like Ted Cruz's daddy killed Kennedy.
Right.
I don't know. He was just...
Well, what's interesting about Trump is...
Second Amendment solution, right?
Right. Everything that he says other people are doing, it's typically what he's doing.
Exactly. This is very important about the voter fraud con, which is that they don't just say voter fraud. They use that as an excuse to then stop the fraud by means that end up removing votes of, and guess what? What color are the people whose votes are removed? Here's how they did it this time. And by the way, I have a whole movie about it called The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. And you could watch me on my investigation. And there's lots of cartoons in there, so it's real easy to watch. Very entertaining.
Yeah, it's my friend Keith Tucker. Keith Tucker did all your art for you, and I
That's right. He's the guy who, by the way, Keith Tucker. For those who don't know, he's the guy who drew Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and so you'll recognize some of that good stuff. In fact, his comic book, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, is free at my website, gregpalast.com, by Keith Tucker, and you can download it there. And you can also see it's taken from the film with all the stars like Rosario Dawson. So it's a real Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
But the thing is, here's how they did it. Okay, It's a system called cross-check. They said all these millions of people are voting twice. Now, how do they know that? They got this guy, Chris Kobach. Now, he's in the news because he was just meeting with Trump about the plan to he has a program which will track Muslims around the country.
Right.
He's the guy who told Trump to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it. He wrote the driving while brown law in Arizona called SB 1070.
Which is funny because he's from Kansas.
Yes. No, he's done all this legal work all over the country, or illegal work, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
despite having a day job, which is Secretary of State of Kansas in charge of voting there.
Yeah.
But what he did is he used his official position to get all the other Republican secretaries of state, the little Catherine Harrises who run the voting system,
Right.
to send their entire voter rolls to this guy, Kobach, in Kansas. And he would hunt for people voting in 2 states in one election. Okay, if someone's voting 2 states in one election, they're a criminal. That's a felony. Go to jail. Go arrest them. Fine. But that's not what they did. He found 7.2 million suspected double voters in the United States. 7.2 million. Now, what was his grand sleuthing? He says, he checked Social Security numbers, all this stuff. Nah. No one would give me the list because they said, well, these are criminals. We can't give you lists from a criminal investigation. But if you know Greg Palast, I'm an investigative reporter. As soon as you say it's confidential, that's the first thing I'm going to get. It took months, but we got the list. We got millions of names of the double voters. And who's on the list? Maria Hernandez, David Lee, Jesse Jackson, James Brown, Jorge Rodriguez. You getting the picture?
Yes, common names.
Common names, and that means ethnic names in America. 85 of the 100 most common names, last names in America, are minority names, like Garcia and Rodriguez and Jackson and Brown and Lee and Wong. And those are the most common names in America. So if you're going to have people with two, with a first, the only match to determine someone's a double voter, committing a felony crime is their first and last name matches. So if someone named Joe Garcia is wanted for burglary, then you would say, well, let's arrest everyone named Joe Garcia in the United States. There are 836,000 Garcias in the United States. That's from the census. And so we were able to find out that this list is just all minorities. We weren't guessing. We ran through computers. We gave it to guys from Amazon and eBay, by the way, who do their databases, and had them analyze it. Who are these people? And basically they said, well, it's a great list of, voters of color, and which means Democrats, right?
So then,
and that includes, by the way, Asian Americans who now vote like they've turned black.
So let me ask you this though: there was no middle initial included. There were no Social Security numbers cross-checked. There was nothing. Just
right. Well, for example, we had there's this itinerant musician lives in a bus, so he can easily move from state to state and commit this crime. Named Willie Nelson, and it's true, Willie H. Nelson. He's really on there. He's in the film, Willie, and people have to understand this film is all nonfiction, but it looks. People say, how much of this is true? All of it, except for Santa Claus. That's just Ed Asner in a Santa suit. But Willie H. Nelson supposedly voted a second time, as you ready, as Willie Mae Nelson, a woman in Mississippi. Oh. They really did. So they don't even check the genitals, let alone the middle names. We had Maria Hernandez. There's lots of Maria Hernandez who were accused of voting twice. Now, being accused of voting twice, you're being accused of committing a felony crime, which means they ought to arrest you if you're under suspicion of committing a felony crime. They don't do that because it's phony. Rather, they take away your vote. They send you a postcard, and if you don't respond to the postcard, very few people
They did that to me. They did that to me. I went to vote, and they told me, we sent you a postcard, and so you didn't answer, and so you're off you're off the rolls. You have to vote provisional, and you know me. I was like, no, I'm so sorry, I'm not voting provisional. Go get my voting record, and they got my voting record, and they said, oh, I see. You just vote. You didn't return the postcard. I said, I got lost with the Crate and Barrel catalog in the trash. I mean, what kind of a way is that to purge a voter? So
especially if you're accusing someone of a crime, you don't mail them a letter. It's a 5-year felony, hard time. It's just like if you don't send someone a note saying, I think you robbed a bank.
Right.
Please confirm. But they do that for a good reason because these aren't criminals. In fact, I went down to South Carolina to talk to these redneck racists. Oh, excuse me, officials of the Republican officials. I'm sorry, I'm confused too.
It's okay.
And I said, well, these are criminals. How many of you arrested? None. I said, why? They said, they're hard to find. I said, you have their addresses. So I literally went from this guy's office who said he couldn't find these people and walked out and got their addresses and knocked on their doors and met these supposed, felonious double voters. People like, for example, in Ohio, I met this one guy, that you'll see in the film, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, there's a plug, is Donald Webster. Okay, he supposedly voted in Ohio. and he voted in Virginia. Except this guy in Ohio that I met, he's Donald Alexander Webster Jr. The guy in Virginia is Donald Eugene Webster Sr. Okay. And they say that's the same guy. But one thing that they do have in common is they're both black.
Right, and this is what happened in Florida. I mean, before I went to New York and all that, I lived in Florida in 2000 and voted in Palm Beach County. So, I know the game. I know how they, purged all these felons, caged them, and, said, hey, every Eric Johnson or every, Bo whatever, all the Johnsons. None of the Johnsons can vote because, and one was a junior, one was a third, one was an Edward A. Johnson, one was an Edward B. Johnson. It didn't matter. That's why I asked you, did it include middle initials or did it?
No, they deliberately didn't. In fact, I actually, in the film, I jumped this guy, Kobach, this guy who's going to probably be head of Homeland Security, by the way.
I know.
And Kobach, so I actually jumped him because he wouldn't talk to me. And as if you know Greg Palast, if that's what you're listening to, people.
You get it, people's faces. Yeah.
I do old-fashioned investigative reporting, and I learned at the BBC, which is where I came out of. That's where I first did investigative reporting in London.
Right.
And our rule was if some politician, some jerk or corporate thug or something says they won't talk with us, we don't say, gee, he won't talk with us. We go and hunt them down and jump them. And so I actually jumped this guy, Kobach. He was in I went to Wichita where the Republicans were having an ice cream social. and I kid you not, they only serve vanilla. I can't make that up. and here's all these old geezers like sucking on their vanilla ice cream cones. And I figured, how do I sneak up on this guy? So I had one of those, those cubes that you see on all those local news stations with the numbers on them. So I had a 4, but on like Eyewitness News, except it wasn't a lie because I was actually working with Channel 4 of Britain, of London.
Right.
And so I have this little microphone with the little cube on it and all that, and I kind of grab him and grab his hand, and then he realizes who it is. But he, I got through, and then I get interrupted by he tries to get away because they started saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I have to take off my fedora and put it over my heart and all that.
Oh, for Pete's sake. All right, so explain to me now, what is this audit looking for? We know
so there's many. Okay, so there's a few different levels of it. First, they're not looking for Russians in the computer code.
Yeah, can we stop talking about hacking because those things are not connected to the internet? Okay, so let's
and even and this guy said that it doesn't matter. They're not That's not what the
Are you as frustrated as me? I mean, I'm watching the news all weekend. Ever since she starts fundraising for, first she wants $2 million, then she wants $7 million, and they're trashing Jill Stein. They're just trashing her.
Right. So let me straighten out a few things. In fact, I'm going to be putting out a kind of Q&A on just the no BS inside facts of the recount. Because Stein had called me to release the information for whatever reason, mainly because I know a lot about vote manipulation.
Yeah.
And I know her chief attorney who's in my film, Bob Petrakis.
Yeah, right.
Who's quite expert. So now, here's number one. They're not looking for Russian spies or hackers, is number one, but they are doing this. They are looking, they're going to go through, when people showed up and they got cross-checked off the voter rolls in Michigan, and there were probably about 50 to 60,000 people who lost their vote to cross-check.
Really?
Almost, yeah, in Michigan alone. And so, but if they were given a provisional ballot, they're going to try to fight to get their ballot counted. In other words, if your name is not on the voter rolls, they're going to fight to get you counted.
Right.
And then same in Wisconsin. So those provisional ballots. So if people are told, like you were, hey, your name's not on the voter roll, you're inactive, whatever that means, you're a felon, whatever the heck, that they will challenge those, the rejections of those provisional ballots. Now, a lot of people just walked away rather than fill out a provisional ballot or didn't know if they had the right to one. And just because we complain, they might take the case that if someone's wrongly removed, tough luck, Jack, you're still removed. So that's all got to be fought out. The second thing is people are, we have like 30 million absentee ballots in America. You have droves of absentee ballots in these states. Michigan plays a game where if you come in for early voting, they make you fill out an absentee ballot, even though you're actually in the station. Instead of putting you on a machine or counting your vote immediately, they take your ballot. Good luck with that. Someone takes your ballot and promises that they will count it later. I just spoke to Norm Stockwell in Madison, the Progressive's publisher, and he says you can look up whether your vote's been counted. And he said there is, he looked up and it says check in 45 days. So far, his vote has not been counted, as far as he knows.
Oh wow!
And he checks in 45 days. In other words, after Electoral College has voted. Great.
Right.
So they're going to look through the absentee ballots to see which ones weren't counted and for what reason. They'll say, oh, the signature doesn't match, or it had a bend and has to be run through a machine. If it's bent, it'll be kicked out and thrown away. They're going to grab all those ballots. Spoiled ballots are people supposedly voted for two presidential candidates. What that suggests is not that people are that stupid, but that the machines are stupid, that they were miscalibrated. And unfortunately, you have a lot of miscalibration in low income areas because they know how to miscalibrate when they want to. And then there's a lot of work, including trying to get a hold of when they have those machines. Someone sticks a memory stick in them or a little tiny reader.
Yeah.
That reader machine is sent to an out-of-state private company. The out-of-state private company uploads it to their computer and then shoots it off to the Secretary of State. So there's a lot of physical and electronic transferring.
So that kind of stuff mostly in PA, because PA, they don't have any paper ballots in certain areas.
It's what Fitrakis calls push and pray, where you put your thumb on the vote and you hope that someone is nice enough to record it for you. and honestly, but the thing is that you have to understand, most of these machines, the way that they steal votes electronically, is not like someone in a cave saying, oh, they voted for Hillary, let's switch it to Trump. They know that if it's in the African-American area, if you just unplug the machine or jam the machine or erase erase the memory stick, there it goes. And they don't have to be very particular because people vote like their neighbors is what it comes down to. If you're in, certain rural white areas, there's only Trump voters. If you're in certain inner city areas, there's only Clinton voters. There's not a lot of. You don't have to be too particular when you're trying to mess with votes. You just
so what's really interesting about all this is, well, let me ask you: do you think that this recount's going to affect the electoral college? The 46 electoral votes.
I would not be surprised to see it flip Michigan and Wisconsin. There's going to be a fight over Wisconsin.
Did they ever finish
Pennsylvania
counting?
Will be hard.
Did they ever finish counting Michigan?
No, nothing's ever finished. And we don't know about what. See, one of the problems is getting the information. And by the way, if people want to know if Jill Stein's going to get rich, I hope she does, but it won't be off this. Because under the FEC is very, very careful. The FEC requires that any funds donated to a campaign for a recount purpose have to be in a special recount account that can't be used for any other purpose, and it's carefully
right, because the state wants to get paid.
The reason why the numbers keep going up is that these states keep imposing new charges. For example, they are requiring that the campaign pay the prorated salary of every election official in these three states.
Oh my God!
And so they'll say, okay, in this county, 7 people work 62 hours for this, and with their benefits and everything else, that's $126,000. In this county, and they don't even know. I mean, one of the things is kind of a crapshoot because they could get hit with a $20 million bill. They're just, they're hoping that there will be. One of the problems is that they're trying to almost make sure that it's expensive by delaying this, making it complex. For example, today in Wisconsin, the election board ruled that, and by the way, this is a brand new board just appointed by Governor Scott Walker. They used to have a board of elections that was made up mainly of judges,
right,
who were nonpartisan, and so Scott Walker didn't like the idea of a nonpartisan, can't mess with it board. So he created a new board of his political hacks, and that his hacks just ruled today that no, the Green campaign cannot look at every one of the ballots, cannot hand count and review each ballot. That will be up to each county, which means they have to have lawyers go to 78 counties.
Right.
And you know what's the cost is exploding. This is the problem. And they're doing that deliberately to slow it up because the absolute drop dead deadline is the 19th of December.
Of course. Well, what's interesting? The margin in Wisconsin, Trump over Hillary, was 0.7 of a point.
Yeah, which, given their machines, is like nothing. I mean, that's just the usual jam factor in their machines.
Right, and
so, for example,
Michigan, now that they've certified, now you could do the recount. That's why I keep asking, because until they certify, you can't request, a contest. You can't request, the contest period, the protest period. It's all election law, but you have to wait till it's certified before you can ask for a recount. That's what. But Michigan, the difference is like 0.3%.
Right.
Pennsylvania, it's 1.2% difference. So,
and Pennsylvania is going to be the hardest because they
of
have
the machines.
that DRE voting. But there's a lot of paper simply because so many people mail in their ballots, and there's some places where there are paper ballots. And then they're going to have to try to crack the machines, but that also means getting a code from that these companies consider their private property. You didn't know that the vote tally is a somehow a commercial secret. And this is the madness of that type of system.
Which is why when Jill Stein was first calling for it, and I'm not I didn't vote for her. I'm not a fan or anything like that. It's not like I'm a sycophant or. But I was excited about it only because I think people do deserve to vote on, in a way that they know they can trust, period. Like maybe we'll do it all by mail, like Washington State or, So anyway, but the more Donald Trump tweeted, the more apoplectic he got, the crazier he got, the happier I was.
The one thing is that they are very nervous. I think that there's a extremely good chance of flipping the 2 states. That is getting the right vote. Again, it's not a question of whether for Hillary or
I understand.
Or anyone else. It's all about your vote ought to be counted.
It's about integrity. Yeah, it's about whether.
Yeah, and that's why, like I did the film, I thought, very frankly, I thought I was going to look like an idiot by Tuesday night because I predicted in the film, I say this is how Donald Trump's going to steal the election. I thought, oh my God, Palast going to really stuck his neck out here and just screwed it up. And I never felt so bad about being right, which is because it was ugly and it was stolen. People have to understand these are horrid Jim Crow tactics. And even if what I'm worried about is that with all the difficulty and complexity of doing this recount, while there's a good chance of flipping at least those 2 states, Pennsylvania will be difficult because they've got those mystery machines for about 70% of the vote.
Yeah.
And even if it doesn't flip the vote, because of the difficulty of doing this, you can't capture everything. You can't capture people who didn't have the right ID and then just walked away. Students had a massively low vote unbelievable, in fact, low vote in Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh, please.
Where the students are. And so therefore, kids were just told you can't vote. And they walked away. Well, that can't not be undone. The other thing is you can't, like in South Carolina, where there were massive trickery, that you can't. That doesn't mean that Jim Crow tactics weren't used to basically swipe this election. I saw it in Ohio where, they had this gimmick where the courts forced the Republican Secretary of State to allow voting on the Sundays before election when black people vote. About 70% of black people vote early.
Yeah, polls to the souls.
Ohio.
Yeah.
So he said, okay, well, let's make it fair. Just to make it fair, we're going to have every county have one single polling station. One. That meant the entire city of Cleveland, Cuyahoga, the entire city of Cleveland had a single polling station for black voters.
North Carolina, too.
Station.
I mean, North Carolina, they had to sue. They had to sue for early voting. I mean, it's part of their law, and they still had to go to court to get them to early. And then they gave them, one machine in 3 polling places. Yeah,
and Wisconsin, they were able to beat that to get a court at the last minute so you could open up. That a county could choose to open up extra polling places.
Yeah.
But, other countries simply, when Joe Biden, I was very upset when Trump said the election's rigged. And instead of saying, yeah, you guys are rigging it, you had pinheads like Joe Biden say, America's electoral system is the envy of the world. I don't know, has he only been to Kazakhstan or what? What is... I mean, I can tell you right now, because I was just on ARD, which is the giant German language station, that they introduced my film. They had pieces of my film up, and they said, we know that you all think that American voting is insane and crazy, but wait till you see Palast report. It's even worse. And, coming out of BBC in England, there's no one who thinks that the American system is anything but a kind of frightening horror show. And it's a circus. People laugh and they cry at the same time, but the whole world is horrified. Let me let me tell you, no one votes.
So let me ask
like
you
they
this:
do
the
in
best
America.
democracy money can buy is that. How do I watch that? Can I watch?
Okay, go to Amazon, and for a couple bucks, you can rent or download the film.
Oh, I'm a Prime member. I can do it for free.
Some of it. I don't know if I'll give it to you
okay.
on Prime. It's probably still going to cost you a couple bucks.
All right.
It'll be okay. And then you can also go to gregpalast.com, and they sell DVDs of these.
I have it up on
Amazon
my
too.
screen right now. There's a beautiful picture of you and the nice artwork that our friend did. And
Yes.
gregpalast.com. It's all up there. Yeah, he's amazing. He used to do stuff for me, too. And then, when I was launching this, I called him and I said, could you do some art for me? And he said, I'm very busy on Greg Palast's movie.
Well, that's the thing. We have cartoons in it just because we got like the Who Framed Roger Rabbit thing. So if you watch Best Democracy Money Can Buy, you want to see Keith Tucker's fantastic animation of the dynamic duo of it's like a Saturday morning cartoon that he drew of Catherine and Jeb wiping out the black voters. I know it's there was one reviewer. Most of my reviews have been standing ovations, but one reviewer said he's making fun of something which is really serious. Well, you want to cry for an hour and a half?
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you for making a movie about this, and thank you for predicting it, and thank you for taking this call, just on a spur of the moment.
Okay.
I really appreciate it, and it's called The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. You can get it on Amazon, gregpalast.com. Watch it, weep,
laugh.
And laugh. Yeah, laugh. Vomit, whatever. Yeah, do the whole spew. All right, thank you, Greg, so much. I'll talk to you in 4 years.
Okay, bye. Bye.
That's my friend Greg. I used to see him a lot because we both lived in New York. Now I only talk to him every 4 years. Yeah, Keith Tucker's an amazing artist. All right, it's 1 minute after. We're really late.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.